Hey guys, this is Anne Marie, the anti-HR HR lady. And I know you haven't seen me on social media for a bit because I took some time off for my birthday last month. I took most of the month off from my HR consultancy, but I'm back. I've shared with you guys that I do take some time off for self-care and travel because this work can be emotionally taxing, and sometimes I do need to take a break. So I did that for my birthday, but now I'm back doing discovery calls, talking to clients, and I wanted to do a video today and talk about 4 things that you can do if you are placed on a performance improvement plan by your employer and you believe it to be discriminatory and or retaliatory. The first thing that I would say that you should do is, as an employee, engage in some honest self-introspection, right? And that means ask yourself the question, is there any validity to anything that your employer is claiming in the performance improvement plan? Are you doing your job at an optimal level? Are you performing your job the way that it is supposed to be performed? That's the first question. If you can honestly say, yes, you are, and that you know that there's no validity, then we need to go to the second thing, right? So once you can honestly say, for example, you've been doing great all along, and until you raised a concern, raised a complaint, or something like that, that puts you on the radar of your employer or your manager, then all of a sudden they sought to put you on a PIP. You've never been on a PIP, you've never gotten any feedback from your manager about any concerns about your performance. You have had glowing performance reviews before whatever incident occurred, and now they're seeking to put you on a PIP. That's something that should be a red flag, and you should right away realize that you're being targeted, right? If that's the case, then the second thing that you want to do is get your documentation together. So one of the things you want to do is make sure that you have copies of all those glowing performance reviews that you've received, right? If you've been following me, that means you've been documenting your meetings with your supervisor, you've been talking to them about your performance, and you've been documenting the glowing comments that they have about your performance up until whatever incident occurred that resulted in them beginning to target you. And it's often something as benign as sometimes somebody might disagree with their manager in a meeting, or they get a new manager and all of a sudden that manager starts targeting because they don't like them because they're in a protected class, they're Black, they're a woman, they have a disability, it could be any number of things, right? They start targeting you. You have to start documenting those things. And you want to make sure that you can show that up until that incident, everything was fine. And then they started targeting you, resulting in them putting you on a PIP, right? So this first thing you want to do is have an honest conversation with yourself, confirming that, in fact, you are performing optimally and that this PIP can't be anything but discriminatory and or retaliatory. And when I say retaliatory, I mean it might be that they are retaliating against you for going to HR and complaining about something, or for sending them an email where you complained about something. And it might not even be a discriminatory something at the time. It might be something else, but then they decided to retaliate against you, and you belong to a protected class. Protected classes, I've talked about this before, but a protected class is race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender orientation, or gender identity, ability, your age, religion. Those are all protected classes under employment statutes at the state and federal level. So if you belong to one of those groups and your manager decides to retaliate against you, that can also be a problem for your employer. And also, if you believe that your manager is taking the action they're taking because you are in one of those protected classifications, that's also a reason that your employer can have a problem, right? So you need to be documenting and have proof that you have been a high-performing employee, you've been doing a good job, and that there wasn't any problems until whatever incident occurred. If you're not sure about how to effectively document, I suggest you grab my documentation journal from my website, as it will give you some guides and prompts that will help you do a better job of documenting. It has been newly updated, and the new version has even more prompts, terms, explanations, and tips for effectively documenting a discriminatory hostile work environment. So get to my website, grab your copy, download it, and start using it. So again, the first thing you want to do is be honest with yourself about the validity or invalidity of the PIP. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you have collected copies of all your performance reviews and other documentation that you may have to show that you have been performing optimally and that what is in the PIP is not valid. And the third thing you want to do is make sure you have carefully documented your work environment. So if you hadn't done that already, you start doing it. You can use my documentation journal to do that. It will help you do that effectively. And now the fourth thing you want to do is, after you have done those 2 and 3 things, number 2 and number 3, you want to ask for a meeting with HR and you want to challenge the PIP. And I know people, this fourth step scares people, but it's an important step that you need to take, right? If you want to get anywhere in these types of situations, you have to be willing to stand up for yourself. So you want to gather your documentation, and then you want to ask for a meeting with HR to challenge the PIP and to, in fact, ask that it be removed from your record because it is not valid and you have the documentation to show that you shouldn't be on a PIP. If you don't feel confident in having a meeting with HR and knowing what to say, you might want to grab a copy of the replay of my masterclass, How to Ask for an Exit from a Discriminatory Hostile Work Environment with Cash, and actually get it. It really gives you a lot of tips and pointers about how to confront these types of work environments and how to get your employer to pay you to leave. But it is imperative that you ask for a meeting with HR and you challenge the PIP. If you don't believe that it's valid and you have the documentation to back it up, that is what you should do. And you don't want to just go in there and say you don't believe that it's right. You want to go in there with your documentation and you want to specifically ask that they withdraw the PIP. And after the meeting with HR, you want to follow up with your request in writing. Always remember that if it's not in writing, it never happened. Don't believe that the HR person is going to document it. A lot of times they won't document these meetings, and they do it on purpose because they know if it's not documented, if they get sued, they can say it never happened and they don't have to turn over any notes. Okay? So lots of HR people are trained not to write things down, not to document things so that they're not discoverable. So make sure that you, after the meeting, send an email documenting what happened in the meeting, what you said, what you asked for, and what you expect the next steps to be, right? So those are the steps that you should take if you believe that you have been presented with a PIP and that it's based in discriminatory there's a discriminatory motive or there's a discriminatory action. You need to make sure that you raise these things, because if you don't, the next step when an employer puts you on a PIP is termination. They don't do it to help you improve your performance. They do it so that they can document a reason for firing you and not have to pay you. Right? They'll fire you, pay you your last paycheck and your whatever vacation, if you get paid vacation, and send you on your way. So if you believe that why they're doing what they're doing to you is based in discrimination and retaliation, you have to act, and you have to act fast. If you're not sure or don't feel, ready to take these steps on your own, you can visit my website, book a discovery call, and we can talk about it. But these are the steps that you should take if you believe that you've been put on a PIP and it's invalid. It's not right, it's not truthful, it's not fair, right? So I hope this answers this question, because I get it a lot. People are like, what do I do if I'm on a PIP? I hope this answers the question. Some people will say, oh, well, that won't work. Well, you know what? Not doing anything will also not work for you. So a lot of you, I spoke to someone today and she was talking about the fear, and fear is the thing that keeps us from acting in our own interest oftentimes at work. Because we're afraid we'll get fired, we're afraid people won't like us. The thing is, you need to stop being afraid. Your employer needs to be afraid, not you. Because if they're breaking the law, they should be afraid. You should not be afraid to assert your rights, because at the end of the day, you can get another job. This fear of losing a job, you can actually get another job, right? So don't subject yourself to a work environment that's discriminating against you, that's causing you mental anguish and other types of harm, just out of fear that you will get fired or you won't be able to find another job. You will be able to find another job. And if in fact their actions are illegal, you can walk away on your own terms. So I hope this video has been helpful. I am Anne Marie, the anti-HR HR lady, and I just want to remind you that HR may not be your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend, but I am. I'll see you in the next video.